Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are sort of finishing up here DockerCon 2015 out here in San Francisco. Thank you very much to the DockerCon folks for continuing to have us here.
Everyone's getting tired. The coffee's running out.
A little bit tired. All the vendors are doing their giveaway thing. So if you hear some background noise, somebody won an iPad or a drone or something. So we're going to talk about, we've had this thing down the hallway from us. We've had this very cool blinky light, big box that says Triton on it. And we're going to have a couple of guests. Jeff Dickey, who's Chief Information Officer at Redapt.
How you doing, Jeff?
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
And also host of the OpenStack podcast.
That's right. OS Pod.
Yep. Podcasters on podcasting. And John Griffith, who is a colleague of Aaron's at SolidFire, very well known in the OpenStack community, because you are still the project lead for Cinder?
No, I gave that up about almost a year ago. It'll be a year this November. So now I'm just another contributor.
So you're here at DockerCon, though.
I am. Yes.
Very cool. So new stuff, and containers were big at OpenStack Summit. They're obviously everything here at DockerCon. So guys, first and foremost, give us some of your background. So especially around Redapt. So Aaron knows you guys from his day job. I learned a little bit more about you just over the last few weeks because CoreOS had a big announcement where you guys are partnering with them. There was announcements out of OpenStack Summit. The blinky light box at the end of the thing has been drawn, all kinds of stuff. Who are you guys? What kind of cool stuff do you do for anybody who doesn't know who you are?
Yeah, so we're a systems integrator out of Redmond, Washington, but we have a global footprint or global reach. And the background of the company is kind of interesting because it's almost 20 years old, but it's still very much a startup. And we started out as a Sun micro gray market reseller, so selling Sun back in the .com days, and it's been really just kind of a transformational journey into where we are now. I started with the company almost 6 years ago, and just over 5 years ago, myself and a colleague started the cloud practice at Redapt, and that was kind of it was a big forward move for what a VAR was or is, and that was quite interesting. And we got our toes wet with Cloud.com before that acquisition, and I was saying before, I don't want to rant, but it's like there was a solution for cloud that worked very well.
We said this before we record. This podcast may very well end up being a therapy session for everyone. Well, Jeff and I included on the Cloud.com stuff.
I think the question I should ask you is so you started the cloud business. You guys weren't sort of one of those resellers who said cloud is really packaged virtualization and some of the bullshit that's been who are some of your customers so people have a sense of what cloud means to you guys? Yeah, and it was very much different. So my background before I came to Redapt, I had a consulting practice around VMware and doing it was very early days of VMware, so it's kind of paving the what is virtualization, and yes, it is real, and you can use it in production. To moving into Redapt, and we had a different take on virtualization and cloud. Cloud wasn't a kind of the evolution of virtualization. It was really more of a business case, and it was trying to figure out how to transform IT itself so that you could use cloud and leverage that and do chargeback and different things like that. So we went down the approach with a couple large companies. We were kind of well known for our work with Zynga at the time. I think they had an incredible Cloud.com footprint. It's about 50,000 servers. I know what's weird in the OpenStack community, everyone talks about cores. It's who cares how many cores you have, because it's a big number, right. But it's a very small amount of bare metal servers. So 50,000 servers. I think they had 30,000 in a single zone, if I recall, and that's quite a cloud. That's that's getting up there, and it's obviously not the big three, but that was one of the biggest in the world.
That was years ago. That isn't last year. I mean, that was years ago.
Years ago, and it worked very well, and a lot of cool things came out of that. And we were fortunate enough to get as our CTO Mark Williams, who ran operations for Zynga, and so we've been really maturing our cloud practice and kind of have we're always looking forward, and that's kind of my job too, is to look at what's next and figure out how do we integrate it and bring that to our customers. So we're really lucky that we work with a lot of big name web and tech companies that are pushing the envelope of technology, and then what we do is we try to package that and bring it to the enterprise.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of waiting 5 years for you to actually adopt this technology, can we accelerate that? And infrastructure and hardware, I don't know why everyone wants to DIY everything and figure. It's like we have a wheel and people are trying to make it again. It's hardware.
Yeah.
I like to think we're kind of we put together solutions that work.
Yeah.
And why would you go any other way?
Right. Well, and I think also you come at it from a very unique way compared to a lot of other folks I've seen in the space of you tend to do it from, you start with what is the business value proposition and work your way back into the technology, as opposed to being married to a technology of you're a CloudStack shop, you're an OpenStack shop, you're a Docker shop, you're a NetApp reseller, you tend to very much start at the business side of it and gather the requirements, and you need to build out some kind of cloud.
Yep.
And then you back into the technology from there, which is for resellers, I think, a decently unique approach.
It is. And I think that change happened when when we started the cloud practice. It was seeing folks try to build a cloud, and they were taking 6 to 18 months in the POC process, in the let's try HP, let's try Dell, now let's try Eucalyptus, and let's try Cloud.com, and there's all this stuff that's happening where it's just we want to be agnostic and do the best solution for that use case. And what is that use case? And I think we're still having a problem, just in IT in general, where we want to build things and fix things, but we're creating complexities for ourselves. And and that's kind of a.
Speaking of OpenStack, I'm just kidding.
Yes,
let's go there real quick. So, kind of open question to both John and Jeff. We've all been at the OpenStack Summit. Now we're all here at DockerCon, and we've all had these side conversations around comparisons of the ecosystems at the size of the conferences and however many years into the projects and things like that. What are some of the compare and contrast aspects that the two of you have seen being around OpenStack longer, in early times with Docker?
Yeah, so the big thing for me, and I've talked about this with a number of people today, the biggest difference is the difference in the attitude in terms of what they're trying to deliver in the Docker community versus the OpenStack community. The OpenStack community is, continue to be, it's a platform, it's hard. The theme at every summit, the major talks, everything is about how hard OpenStack is. Here, it's the complete opposite. This is how easy it is. This is how we're going to give you a one-button deployment for the whole stack. Project Orca they talked about today is awesome. I mean, I think that's the best idea. And, as they put it, it's an opinionated install of the bits that works. And that's what OpenStack is lacking. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any traction in the community to make that happen. But that's good, because then that's where folks like Redapt and everybody else comes in. So there's a tough balance there, right? Because a lot of the contributors in the OpenStack ecosystem right now are trying to figure out some way to solve that complexity for people, and that's how they're making a business. So it's kind of a tricky balance. I don't know. The other thing is it's always easy for the next project to come along and learn from what the previous project did, right? So that's a good thing, but it's also not really fair to compare the two because the timelines are completely different, and so.
Yeah.
I think that, just from the physical aspect of the shows, coming right from Vancouver to here, I've been in the booth for a little bit here. I was in the booth a little bit in Vancouver, and the folks are. Here you see real logos on the name tags, and in Vancouver it was very much vendors, and it was very vendor heavy.
And it's a lot easier to get to San Francisco.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
You can have a lot more customers when there's a lot more customers.
But I will say the negative thing is I used to be technical. I'm semi-technical now, but I wasn't interested in any of the tracks really. I mean, they were kind of like, oh, installing Docker. It's like, okay, what? Really? Like, or Docker for sysadmins. It was very dumbed down, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So I've been to wall-to-wall sessions. The general sessions in the mornings, in my opinion, have been fantastic. The tracks that have been broken out, for the most part, they were pretty intro. So.
Which very well may speak to sort of where the community is. I mean, every one of these events have a certain amount of unicorns they want to throw up there, and somebody's doing. But I mean, him and I sat in the networking one yesterday. It was completely full, but it was sort of intro to networking. I sat in intro to Docker, and I mean, literally, you'd think, okay, a couple of years in, everybody in the room was raising their hand, going, "I really haven't played with this very much." So, I think there's a decent learning curve, which kind of plays to what you guys do, which is you bring a bunch of I mean, you can put things together so people can buy them, but you got to have a whole bunch of knowledge behind what you're building.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, the kind of what we've been doing lately, and especially with I work very closely with the Josh Lindenbaum, who runs our business development. We've been creating kind of turnkey accelerators, and kind of like the rack you see down there, the Triton rack from Joyent. It is our goal to get developers building modern apps. That's what we're trying to do.
Right.
And so if we can land these in the data center, they're workload ready, they're application ready, they're ready to go.
Yep.
And so you don't have to figure out and if you want to figure it out, take your time figuring it out, but give your developer something that they can use instead of, it's the opportunity cost that it's just been frustrating me for several years of we've been doing cloud. I mean, cloud's been around for a long time, and yet it's like not even around yet.
Yeah, it's to give folks a picture, because telling people to look down the hall doesn't work on a podcast very much. So essentially, we're looking down the hall. It's a half a rack of gear. Just to put it in context, and I don't mean to sort of bias it. It's in essence, it's a V block. It's a packaged piece of hardware, but with sort of cloud native software running on top of it, which I think there's probably a fairly large market for that, because there'll be people who, developers who will go grab some public cloud resources, but there's others who they're either not allowed to, they don't feel comfortable with it for various reasons. And I don't know of anybody else in the market who packages it together. Like you said, it's just sort of developer ready. And that's very cool. How do you go about the thought process? Aaron talked about starting with the business side. How do you go about the thought process of saying, like, what do I put on this stack? Because something ends up having to show up.
As far as like kind of who we're picking out on these,
because I mean, you guys did one with CoreOS all around their Tectonic
Tectonic
stuff,
one,
right?
yep.
There's one down the hall with Joyent.
We have a Mirantis one,
right? So I mean, do you sort of just think about that from a stack perspective, or are there certain kinds of use cases that you have in mind based on who you partner with?
It's really around. I mean, these have all been kind of organic.
Yeah.
And the way they've happened, and from the folks we work with, our customers, our partners, it's kind of hard to pinpoint kind of how it comes to be.
Yep.
But it's about following the kind of the inertia and where that lands, and it's come to these solutions.
Right. How do you? We talked a little bit yesterday. We were going to do the show last night. We got cut off and so forth. You guys have a bunch of. The one thing that I would argue in the market today is I can get a lot of packaged stuff, right? But I don't get a lot of packaged expertise, right? And that's nobody packages their learning curve. You guys sort of have a bunch of real learning curve. How do you keep your people up to speed? Because this stuff's, I mean, like from a VAR SI perspective, how do you keep them trained? Because this stuff's going so fast. What's the process you guys use to keep them up to speed?
Well, I have massive ADD, and I'm always looking for the shiny thing. And so I'm always throwing new technologies into that cloud group to look at. We have an office of the CTO where they have to tell me no to many things I'm kind of bringing to the table, and it's too early, too new, too this. But
the fact that the CTO is telling you that is funny, though. Just so you know,
and our CTO is awesome.
Your rocks are too shiny. Settle those down a little bit.
He's very operational minded. He's it's like, well, how simple is this, and will it scale? Will it scale to multi-thousand? So luckily our cloud team they kind of have that same attitude where it's what is new, what can I learn from this, and what is it solving. They're also really good at, we do these workshops, and go back to an earlier point, we do try to start at what are you trying to do. We're not just saying, oh, you should use OpenStack. It's what is the end goal for what you're trying to spend money on hardware, services, and software, and what do you want to accomplish? And then we have our cloud team involved in these workshops, so they get to see really the business case all the way down to the technology, and it's they dig it. It's very interesting to see that the full life cycle of this stuff, and to see that choice, and luckily we have great relationships with our partners, and training is not an issue. We do a lot of shadowing on stuff, and it's kind of train the new guy.
Yeah, no,
or girl.
Makes sense.
What's so John's here from SolidFire. He runs.
It's my third podcast with John.
Yeah,
I know.
We're getting to be good friends here.
He drives a lot of the API side development. One of the great things about what SolidFire does is awesome from an API perspective. How much you talk about partners and what goes in there, like. How's the conversation changed from I want certain kinds of ports and configurations to this is what I want your APIs to look like, compatibility? I mean, how's the vendor conversation change from what you guys do?
It hasn't really.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't do that. Or we don't have those conversations on the necessarily the appliance level, but our cloud engineers are having those conversations, and so I try to stay out of that. That's over my head.
So that's where I come in, and I've met with a number of engineers from Redapt. I've flown out there a couple of times and met with them to have those discussions. And for them, it's a big deal, right? So that is an important piece. But from Jeff's perspective and from the end user's perspective, by the time they get it, they shouldn't know anymore, right?
Right.
So
that's where you're really turning, the racks into operations.
Exactly.
Right. That's where. And now you brought up the interesting point earlier too of it's great to think about scale day one, because I often think a lot of the solutions, especially that I see come out of the reseller communities, or when you have reference architectures and things like that. A lot of times it's like. You're a reference architecture designed to, I wouldn't say lowest common denominator, but certainly maybe one or two steps up tops around maybe an average minimal sale, if you will, into an environment. And no one really thinks of, well, what if I need 10 more? What if I need 20 more? What if I need 1,000 more? Depending on how big it's going to scale, right? And is that something that... you have to worry about from like a testing perspective ahead of time, because it seems like being a reseller, that's something that may be hard for you, right?
It is. It is. It really comes down to
it becomes theory versus reality, right?
It does, and it seems like it's the networking that always is
always
the issue.
the networking.
It's always networking. It's really the networking guys. It's not the networking. It's just really just the networking teams. It's people.
I won't argue.
So luckily we have done a lot in the hyperscale and large pods, and we've been able to reuse blueprints for that. But it's just more of a technical piece where how much latency can you have across this many racks, and we're not able to interconnect the photon stuff with the switches yet, and so. It's just about latency and apps. And the interesting thing, too, with the hyperscale folks, they're single app folks. They're not, this isn't multi-tenant, there's not 5,000 apps across this massive farm. They're this is my Memcache farm, this is my web farm, this, it's very different. So scaling becomes more of what each piece needs to scale. It's not this huge, we're not putting, 100,000 servers into a zone.
Yeah. Right. So, we were talking at the beginning about, the difference between some of these events and so forth. Like one of the other things that strikes me a lot is, yes, some of them are vendor-centric, some of the more open source one are, user-driven in some cases, but they've become very much hiring events, and not just the vendors saying I'm hiring, but it's the resellers are hiring, the end users are hiring, and so forth. Like, what's the profile of you? Because I know a whole bunch of buddies who, if you told them like you're going to get to work on a whole bunch of the newest, coolest stuff, and there's a market for it, it's not just you playing with it, they'd be like, I want to do that. Like, what are you guys looking for? What kind of skills are you looking for? What's the new SI VAR looking for in terms of skills?
We're typically looking for people that have kind of a proven track record for learning new technologies.
Yeah.
So it's, we want to see lots of different things on the resume over and over, and we want more hardcore Linux folks. And even some of the old school Solaris folks are great too, because they kind of get what we're doing, and they understand the containment and everything, and so we're kind of looking for those guys too. But it's really tough right now.
It's a hard skill set. It's the skill set we've been telling everybody they got to keep looking for, but it's a hard one to find.
It's very hard, and it's hard to find, especially an OpenStack engineer.
Yeah.
Or to get them to stay for more than 6 months anywhere, right? So we're looking, and we've had some success too. Hiring more junior people, but really, hey, go. What do you want to learn?
Yeah, go be technically curious and
get in the lab and figure it out. We have lots of toys. We have SolidFire. We've got every OEM gear. We have whatever you want. We have that.
Yeah, well, and it's almost like too. We were actually, John and I were talking at lunch about this. If we thought the OpenStack, the velocity around how fast the industry was moving was pretty quick, the Docker one is insane.
Yep,
and we've talked about it on the podcast before. It seems like the technology isn't slowing down, but it's not even moving at the same pace. It's accelerating almost exponentially at this point.
Yep.
And so to your point, it's not even do you have experience. It's just can you learn on the fly is really one of the key aspects going forward.
It may not be Docker tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah. I venture to guess that by next year we'll be thinking about and talking about something new. And I think that acceleration is going to continue to be an exponential curve. And instead of 2 years before everybody's trying to deploy it and implement it, it'll be 1 year. And then, and it'll just continue. Those cycles will get shorter and shorter. That's my guess.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah, and there's plenty of stuff that's certainly hot right now. Mesosphere is incredible. Docker's just not the end all, be all. It is great for what it does, but not everything fits into that. I've had folks tell me that virtualization is dead and dying, and it's just I try to explain to them, hey, I've got customers that have 40,000 apps in their organization. You're telling me that they're just one day going to wake up and rewrite 40,000 apps for Docker? It's just not going to happen. Virtualization is going to be there for a while. You've got all kinds of different MapReduce
big data,
the big data stuff, and you've got Spark, and you have mixed workloads in the environment. So, I'm definitely excited about Docker's exciting, Mesosphere's exciting, Kubernetes, Tectonic, CoreOS. There's another company I'm excited about called Green Cloud. So there's great technology out there. It's just just use it.
Well, and I think it's what you said too is an important thing to remember too is there is a place for each of those technologies.
Yep.
They are solving a specific problem, and in almost all cases, you may have use cases for one versus the other. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Right. So I think what's going to be more interesting is when they all start to blend together and what you can build out of having all of them.
Right. And like you said, that's Mesosphere is starting to get hot because they're talking about how do you blend all these things and schedule them the right way, and people trying to wrap their heads around not having pods of this. It's mixed blends of stuff,
and it's a blending and it's an overlap all at the same time. So we've been having lots of talks recently of okay, some of these technologies do the same things, but one's a lot easier, right? And so what does that mean? At the end of the day, right? Is there a reason for that complexity? Is there a need for that complexity, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the velocity, right? Can we solve problems quicker with more minimal infrastructures going forward?
Yeah. Well, you have there's a couple things, right? There's operations, and you have the dev folks. And going back to the hiring process, is you're trying to hire devs because of look at all the stuff you can do and develop on. But operations is like, we don't want any of that.
Yeah,
we just want one thing to manage, and you're trying to find in ops, you're trying to hire who's the best at that one thing. Versus, in dev, you want to write. Do you know Go? Do you know Node? Do you know all this stuff to build out? And that's we're seeing kind of a gap in between ops and dev, and how many technologies do you want to use? But we're going to have to use more, and we're going to have to sharpen our.
Right, yeah. If every time somebody says something's going to be dead, it's going to be like, there will be, even if it does die, there will be 2 or 3 more things you'll have to learn next. So, unless you're not willing to learn, don't worry. Your job's not going away. Your curiosity's not going away. And
yep.
I mean, we talked to the former socket playing guys, or now sort of the Docker networking guys, and they kind of gave us this answer about like who's going to run the network in a Docker environment, and it's sort of it's all blurred together. And there was a part of an answer that was like, one of the guys said, well, it'll be the devs just carrying pagers. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm going, there's no way you're going to convince them, A, to want to carry pagers. I mean, that may be part of what they do, but B, to go, I need you to write this app in Node, and oh, by the way, I need you to debug this BGP problem. It's like, I don't know those two things. There's no way you're going to teach them. So, like, there will be this distinct separation. It's just, like you said, do you know some of it? Do you know all of it? Do you silo it and stuff like that?
Who's going to want to do that? You're going to have really cool slides in your office to make devs wear a pager.
Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of back to what you said, though. I think the key is, technology is changing, the world's changing, and the important thing for software engineers anymore, in my opinion, is more about ability to learn new things, pick them up, experiment with new technologies, and love it, and really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And, the people that are stuck with, hey, I program in this language and that's what I do, that's the stuff that you don't want, right? That's kind of a bad deal.
Yeah. So we're sort of ramping it up. I think the show's starting to shut down a little bit. Any last minute rants you guys want to have? Get off your chest,
How much time do we have?
No, I'll put it this way. Like, let's say you were sitting here. One of the people who organizes the event was walking by before you guys came by, and we were talking about DockerCon Europe, and like, what suggestions would you give to them? Is it, I need more technical sessions? Is it, what would you give them going, okay, 6 months from now, what are people going to care about in this space?
More coffee.
Better coffee.
Yeah.
The coffee was pretty bad.
It was bad. Probably, I feel like this was treated kind of like a carrier treats bandwidth, where it was a little oversubscribed.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people.
Yeah.
In a small space.
Right.
So
they need to be over at Moscone West or somewhere else.
Yeah, and to think how many people. Look at the growth that OpenStack had at their conference. This is going to quadruple next year or something, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say, my recommendation would be just, I think they did a great job. I think it was a great show, with the exception of, the tracks that were going. That worked out okay because they also did these cool things like I don't know if anybody saw the Ask the Experts room, a bunch of reps from Docker, a bunch of developers and stuff. I went in there a couple of times over the past couple of days and spent a lot of time in there talking to people about different ideas, different things that are coming down the pipeline. I think that was one of the most valuable resources. The tracks, like I said, they weren't all that great, but everything else, fantastic.
Keynotes were great.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm sure, I hadn't confirmed it with them, but I'm sure everything will be on YouTube, the usual, pretty soon.
Yeah, hope so.
So
I know the keynotes are.
I think there should be more kind of business tracks. I know it sounds kind of weird, but AWS is, and this may be the only thing that I think they do well. They do have kind of the partner tracks.
Yeah,
and I shouldn't say that. I think the Amazon AWS is awesome. But working with
do I need to edit that out? Is what
no. It just they're a big company. It's challenging working with them. So
can you start my car?
No, there's no one from Amazon listens to this, right? No. But AWS and Amazon they do a great job with how to work with Amazon and what to do and just kind of the business track. Like, it'd be great to have some folks figure out, and the partners and everything, figure out how to work with Docker and what to do and what their message is and how to be on the same page and how to solve these actual problems from the business side, not just throwing technology at it.
Well, and I think that probably shows up a maturity level of the state of Docker business, if you will, right now. Like
Docker Inc. versus Docker the project.
Right, exactly. Like I just said on the previous podcast, like I still feel like Docker's in red light, green light stage. Like, does it work or is it broken?
Well, so that is what's kind of interesting. So a couple of the sessions today, like Disney, for example, got up and they did a live demo. The only live demo that worked all week, by the way. But they did a live demo of spinning up 1,000 containers in their environment, and they were using Mesos and doing some other things. And it was really cool, and they were showing actual real workloads that they're doing and how things are working. And then the folks from the government, the GSA, those guys, they actually showed some really cool stuff too. So it was kind of interesting because there was a mix of hey, here's some stuff that we're actually doing and taking all these pieces and putting them together. And the fact that a demo actually worked, it was, like I said, it was the only one. And then they tried to show a video at the end and the video didn't work. So,
the use case sessions are definitely what I want to go back and hit on replay. Like I, for me, the big thing is I want to learn the use cases and what are people doing right now. Right?
I think that's the
what
biggest
are the problems
challenge.
I
think that's the biggest challenge. And I think people, I think that's one of the things that people struggle with getting their head wrapped around on OpenStack is, okay, so I've got this thing and it's now got 30-some projects in it that I don't know what they do and they all have funny names. Even if I have it, what do I do with it? What's the value for me? What is the real benefit? And I don't think we've done a really good job of trying to get that message across and helping people to understand what the value propositions are. I mean, I talk about it all the time, but that's just my opinion. So
Sure.
Well, cool, man. I think we covered a lot. We didn't completely butcher OpenStack. I think we gave it some room to breathe. But no, this was cool. I think your guys' feedback was really good because it's about, you've got a need from a technical perspective, you've got a need from a business perspective, you're trying to apply it to what you're doing with your partners, what your customers are trying to do. It's
trying to turn it into a business.
Yep. Yeah, which, I mean, at the end of the day, Docker's trying to be a business, you guys are downstream, you're trying to be a business, you're a vendor, you're trying to be part of the ecosystem. Like, that's, I mean, the question we have more than anything else is, a lot of these guys make cool technologies, will they be around, will they make any money to be around next year or the next year, or do they just have to get acquired by somebody big? So I think the feedback you're giving, we'll pass it along back to them, but I think, you guys pass it along. It's part of the logical process, right?
Yep.
So
I will say that there has been great people. I mean, they're awesome. The attendance, there's folks that I've talked to at the party last night and here at the show, and just there are some super smart people here doing really cool.
Yeah, and John and I were talking at lunch. Like, the ecosystem is really cool.
It's solid. Yeah,
it is awesome.
Yeah.
It reminds me of OpenStack back in Boston. That's the last time an OpenStack summit felt kind of like this in terms of just how friendly and open people were, and everybody sharing ideas and stuff like that. It was really cool.
Good. Awesome. All right, so we'll wrap things up here. Jeff, John, where can everyone kind of find more about y'all, the companies, what you guys got going on? Jeff, you want to go first?
Yeah, so you can find me at Jeff Dickey on Twitter and at OS Pod on Twitter, and check out the Redapt website. It's www.redapt.com. I can't believe I said the dub part. Can you edit that out,
You're
please?
old.
Yes, they go to, I believe it's an HTTP.
Colon.
So that's where you can find us and.
Cool. I am kind of on a Twitter and blogging vacation, but my Twitter handle is JDG_8. And I do have a blog at Griffith's Corner on WordPress, but I haven't written anything in a long time. So
cool. All right. So you can follow us on Twitter at thecloudcast.net, or you can reach us on the web at thecloudcast.net, where you can find links to everything related to the show. And again, thank you to the DockerCon folks for having us. And until next time, take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.